Finn Balor comes out. This poor guy. He's got like the biggest promo in years for him. And he's out in this crowd in Wichita. And he calls out Seth Rollins for a talk. But he warns no jokes, no sing-alongs. So Balor is confronted by Rollins. And this crowd, turns out they've been silent for most of this show. This is what they showed up for. They paid to sing. And no one was depriving them of singing.
Superplexes and singing. That's what they're here
yes.
for.
I will get very annoyed at the what chants and that they keep coming up. I am not going to blame any audience for doing this. And you have encouraged this, and this adds a great atmosphere for Rollins, but you're also going to get situations like this where it's going to overtake certain segments and these performers are going to have to roll with it. And I think Balor was trying, you could see both of them were trying to get things on track, and Rollins could sense it. And I think overall you got the message across, but I feel this was one of those segments where I don't think Balor intended that this audience was just not going to let up.
Reactions like this are kind of hard to predict. This reminded me very much of the Elias Seattle segment, where the crowd just kind of took over and they were doing whatever they were doing, right? And I don't think they could have anticipated it. At the same time, I don't think they were exactly shying away from it. I think Balor at times was, purposely maybe given direction, maybe not, to just encourage it and to keep this going. Because
if they were both acting in the moment, they both made it feel pretty like Balor was just doing what any heel would do, like getting on the crowd for this. And Rollins was, he was, interjecting. And I guess it comes down to whether you felt that added to the segment or this kind of deteriorated the message of Balor. But regardless, I mean, it was an engaged audience, which on this show was necessary at certain points. It's that time of the show where we tell you about the Post Wrestling Cafe, the best place to drop your $6 every month for bonus content.
It's a busy week this week. We've got the double shot with our Dark Side of the Ring review. We've got Rewind Away on Thursday, Rewind of SmackDown on Friday, and on Saturday, a brand new show.
It's the launch of our new weekly AEW Collision review with 2 hosts that will be joining me. Go to postwrestlingcafe.com and video.postwrestling.com to subscribe. So Balor's big promo here is that he's been waiting for 7 years to tell this to Rollins, that he was the first round draft pick in 2016. He beat Roman his first night, and then 3 weeks later beat Rollins to become the first Universal Champion. And if you remember that match, go to the Rewind Away archives. That was a match that the whole crowd booed that design of that Universal Championship, and they were so negative on that title to the point that Seth Rollins went on Twitter later that night to voice his displeasure with that Barclays Center crowd. So these two together, they brought out something in their live audiences. But Rollins starts laughing, stating, "This is the Balor I've been waiting for 7 years." And Balor's blaming him for the lows he hit since 2016 with the injuries. He understands that people get hurt in this business, but you took my momentum and a year from my career, which wasn't quite a year, but nonetheless. Now it's his turn to take all of this from Rollins, and he's going to do it at Money in the Bank. And Rollins says, we went different ways after that match in 2016. One of us got bitter, the other got better. And I made memories for fans because I changed, I adapted. Now I'm the best version of Seth Rollins, and the proof is this title that I wear. So he agrees to face him and says that this bitter shell of a champion, Finn Balor, doesn't stand a chance. But the Finn that beat him at SummerSlam with one arm hanging from his body, that guy has a shot. So he asks if that Balor is going to show up or this version of Balor who acts like a little bitch. It was a good segment that these two had mapped out. And I guess it just depends on if this crowd totally was a tidal wave to the actual dialogue between them. But nonetheless, you set up the match. There's a key story to this that they have, for whatever we talk about WWE forgetting about long-term things, this is a match and an injury that they have never let you forget. So I think most fans are up to speed on this, even though we're talking about 7 years ago, which is a lifetime when you think about it.
Well, unfortunately, it has sort of become a career-defining moment for Finn Balor. The guy who, coming out of NXT was just like a really hot product that they strapped the rocket to and crowned basically, his first stint in the company and having it all go away the next day. It's kind of tragic, and unfortunately Finn Balor hasn't done anything in the WWE that has surpassed that moment. And you know, it's for that reason that I think it sticks in everybody's memory, especially when you're talking about the combination of Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. And for that reason, I thought this was a really strong promo. If you could hear it, you know, if you could hear Finn Balor,
that's the if.
This was one of Balor's better promos in his entire WWE run, because there was a lot of, you know, what felt like heartfelt resentment from what, you know, again, has been a career-defining injury for him at this point. And he used it to fuel this rematch against Seth Rollins. And I thought Rollins' retort was equally as strong and set him up for like a great heroic sort of like wisdom sharing moment where, you know, he says, in the face of adversity, I got better while you just got bitter. The crowd singing, I think, ultimately did make this segment feel more memorable. It would be one thing if I was there live and I could hear what Finn Balor was saying, but because I could hear through the microphone, it just kind of provided like a really great enemy sort of like territory backdrop for Finn Balor to cut this promo in. And I think whether or not it gets remembered positively will be dependent on how WWE reminds us of it going forward. I think they should talk about this as if it was like, you know, this monumental night in Seth Rollins' career. Certainly, like in the build for this match at Money in the Bank, they should go back to this.
Do you foresee this? Like we see a lot of audiences, like they will become like copycats that we've seen, like with Dominic and Don Callis. That's a positive. Is it a positive for Rollins segments that the audience kind of takes over in this way?
I think it's all dependent on how they roll with it, right? You know, does the WWE like start crafting segments around the possibility of this? I do think they create like some pretty interesting and actually like spectacular like visuals for the TV audience at home. So I think they could use it to their advantage. When it's not expected and when it's not anticipated, and when it comes to the detriment of people cutting actual promos that are meant to be heard without interruption, then yeah, that could be bad. But for now, they kind of have something special that I think they're continuing to foster.
Yeah, I mean, at its core, it's a lively crowd that's engaged in what's happening in the ring. So it's like, I don't want to push back too much on that. It's more about like, here's something that has come up very
Nobody could have predicted what Chant still sticking around like 20 years later.
Yeah, you know? and those I cannot defend as much. But Wednesday is going to be a very busy day. We've got Rewinded Dynamite, we have the double shot, and Pollock and Thurston will have a very special show coming up on Wednesday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And myself and Brandon will be joined by AEW President Tony Khan. So that is coming up this coming Wednesday on Pollock and Thurston. So look out for that, as we will be talking about Forbidden Door, a lot of focus on the launch of Collision, CM Punk. We will be talking about many subjects with Tony Khan. So look out for that with Brandon and I coming up this Wednesday, and that will be available on both the Post Wrestling and WrestleNomics feeds after the fact.